All right, Virabhadrasana, supine bound angle pose. I have my little apparatus set up here. If you don't have a bolster, you don't need it. You can just lie flat on the floor, but having a bolster or some little stack of blankets is nice. Having something like a pillow to go under your head is also good. The general rule being that when you're lying back, you want your forehead to be slightly, at least even with or slightly higher than your chin. And I'm going to use blocks to be under my thighs just to make this a little less than a full opening just yet. And then I'm going to use a belt. Again, all these props are just optional, but they can be quite nice. So the belt would go like so. And you want the belt, if you're using one, low and back, and then it just secures your feet in close, like so. So that's the idea. And then you just lie back, like so. And then a little support under the thighs at the beginning of the class is always a good idea. So that's how it looks. Hi, Jim.
Hey.
We're starting with Virabhadrasana, supine bound angle pose.
Okay.
So this is the basic structure. Just allowing the props to lift and open the chest, and then just relax down into the props or the floor. Allow your breath to move to a nice, quiet, even place. Breathing where you can, in and out the nose. Breathing through the mouth when you need to. But then returning to that quiet breathing in and out the nose as you can. Go ahead. All right, so let's stir from this and come up to a cross-legged seated posture momentarily. We'll set things up. So what I want to do next is move toward Setu Sarvangasana, but the first thing I want to do is lie over the block. If you have a block, we're going to lie over the block like so, with the block between the shoulder blades, like that. So this seventh cervical vertebrae, which is kind of the big knobby vertebra there, you want it just under that. So the idea will be like so. So this is about how it works. So the block is mostly between the shoulder blades. You can extend your legs out onto the floor, or you can keep your knees bent if that brings more comfort to the low back. Now, once you're in the position, you may feel that the block, that portion of the block down here closer to the waist is kind of digging in, and the portion up here is not. So you have to lift here with the lower sternum to get that pressure even. And then once you have the pressure even, then you allow gravity to just pull you down into the block. And it's almost as if the shape of the block comes up through your torso, almost like poking out of your chest. So it kind of lifts and opens the chest when you release into the block. If you don't have a block or a book, then you just pretend. You can lie on the floor and do this and imagine that there's a block there and get that same lift in the front chest. So it's by lifting in the front chest that you get the evenness of the support in the back. And then again, move into that comfortable, even breath in and out the nose. And it's good to remember this shape. So a lot of what we want to do with this kind of prop use is to, as Mr. Iyengar used to say, you know, the prop is your guru. It's telling you how to lift and open the chest. And so as we go through a few back bends and through a few standing poses tonight, kind of keep that sense. How does it feel to have that block between your shoulder blades? How does it direct you to lift and open your chest so that as we do other poses, you can bring that muscle memory into the poses. It's also the kind of thing you can do to improve your posture. So as you're, you know, standing in line at a grocery store or whatever, imagine that there's that block between your shoulder blades, and you kind of get that same lift and openness to really improve your posture. All right. So you can ease up from there. Doing that. Now we're going to go into Cobra. So you can lie face down. I'm going to do I've got a little minor technical glitch here. I'm going to fix. All right, it's back. I generally cast the whole thing to my TV so I can get a good look at what y'all are doing to a certain extent. And then once in a while, the casting drops. So that's what happened there. Okay, so if you are on a hard surface like I am, you may want a blanket or something underneath you. I'm just going to do it flat just because I'm used to it and it's not really a problem. And we'll start with Cobra pose, Bhujangasana. So just stretch out onto your mat. And we'll do the first one with the forearms on the floor. This will give us sort of a moderate version that you can use if you're just not up for the full version. So palms open and on the floor, forearms, elbows on the floor, the whole rest of the front body on the floor. Extend the feet back and then kind of draw your chest, your torso forward. And then with an inhale, draw forward and up. Doesn't have to be very far up. This is actually a hard way to do the pose. It requires a good deal of strength to hold yourself steady in this version of Bhujangasana, Cobra. As you do, remember how it felt to have that block between your shoulder blades. Kind of do the same thing. Do the action that block was sort of directing you to do. That is to say, move the chest forward, lift forward and up with the lower part of the sternum. Get that same feeling of openness in the chest. And then release. Take a couple breaths. And then we'll do again. You can repeat exactly that version, or you can bring your hands back with your elbows up into the normal position for Cobra, or as if you're going to do downward dog or a whole number of other poses. But feel free to do with your forearms if that's working for you. Again, extend the legs and feet back, tops of the feet pressing down into the floor. Lengthen the chest forward, look forward, and then with an inhale, lift up into Cobra. If you can, you straighten your elbows. And then you externally rotate your upper arms and look up. If you have neck issues, you can just look forward, it's fine. It's actually quite comfortable. But if you've got the comfort with it, you can look up. Again, keep in mind how it feels to have that block between your shoulder blades. And do the pose that way. And then come back down and rest. Just take a look here for a moment. I want to show two things. One is, I'm going to come up into the pose. And then when you're lifting, there's a tendency to kind of hunch your shoulders up like this, which is fine, when you're getting into the pose. But then once you've got that lift in the chest, you want to allow the shoulders to release. The other thing to take notice is where my hands are and how they are in relationship to my chest. So this is fine, but if you can, you bring your hands further back toward your waist, and then you do this pose like so. And you can see that the shape of the pose is sharper. It's almost more like a cobra. Like at least how we think of cobras is lifting right up, almost at a 90-degree angle. So to the extent that you can do that, do it. Bring your hands back further if you can. But it's not a requirement. It's just a way to go in the pose. So wherever you can position your hands, or of course, continue to do it with your forearms on the floor is also fine. Lengthen the feet back, press the tops of the feet on the floor, lengthen the chest forward, look forward, keep the elbows in at the sides, and with an inhale, come up into Bhujangasana. Externally rotate the upper arms. Allow the shoulders to release away from the ears. Take the outer deltoid shoulders back. Imagine that block between your shoulder blades, taking the inner edge of the shoulder blades forward. And look either forward or up at the ceiling. And breathe here in and out the nose. And then release. And just rest. All right, so we'll stay in this position and we'll do locust pose. So we'll do it one leg at a time. You can have your hands up in front like this with your head down or your chin up, or you can have your hands back at your sides, which is my preference because I can use a little leverage pressing my hands down. We're gonna, for the first version here, we want to keep both front pelvic bones firmly on the floor, lengthen both feet and legs back, and then lift just the right leg, keeping the right front pelvic bone on the floor, both pelvic bones on the floor. Lift that leg as high as you can, keeping it straight. Internally rotate that lifted leg, thigh. Tends to automatically kind of want to turn out. You want to keep it turning slightly in. And release. Lengthen both feet back, press both tops of the feet into the floor, and then lift just the left leg, keeping that left front pelvic bone on the floor. Internal rotation with that lifted leg thigh. And release. Take a couple breaths. And now we'll do both legs at the same time. So here you probably will want your hands back at your hips so you can leverage the lift. So when you're ready, with an inhale, lift both legs. Again, internal rotation with the thighs. Keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. And release. Take a couple breaths. We'll do that one more time. It's kind of my favorite. It's really the hardest of this little sequence. So again, extend the feet back, tops of the feet on the floor, hands back into your hips, and with an inhale, lift both legs. Internal rotation with the thighs. Keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. And release. Now extend your hands forward, hands and arms forward. We'll do the full pose, superhero version. So you extend your feet and legs one way, you extend your arms and hands forward the other. And then with an inhale, you lift everything off the floor. Don't hold your breath. This is one where you really want to hold your breath. Don't do that. Keep breathing. And release. Stay here. We'll do one more. Okay, one more. Extend the legs and feet back. Extend the arms and hands forward. And then with an inhale, everything lifts off the floor. Keep breathing. And release. And just rest. Let's go ahead and push back just for a moment, just for a few breaths in downward facing hero pose, just to give the low back a little recovery time. So here the knees are apart, the big toes touch, sit back on your heels, and then just rest down into this pose. Adho Mukha Virasana. Okay, and then come up from there. And now, Ustrasana, camel pose. So I'll demonstrate it. If you have a wall, you can use a wall. If you don't have a wall, I'll show without the wall as well. This is one where you definitely want to be kneeling on a soft surface because your knees will not be happy on a hard surface. So using the wall, you either use a wall or you pretend that you have a wall. If you have a wall, or pretend or otherwise, you bring your knees right up to the wall and you sort of cinch up the whole front body to the wall. As you can see, my knees are a little apart, feet are a little apart. They can be together or, as I have here, a few inches apart. Then you're going to want to put your hands on your low back, pointing your fingers down into the buttocks for support. And the elbows stay together, or not together, but close. So that's the idea. Now, if you don't have a wall, it's fine. You just do without the wall. But what the wall will help you do is maintain this upright posture. The tendency when we do without a wall is to lean back, which takes a lot of the engagement out of the front, the thighs. So I'm going to use with the wall. But you do as you have, as you may. So hands in position for support. Extend the knees down into the floor, lift the torso up, inhale, and arch the top chest away from the wall, pretend or otherwise, while keeping the front pelvic bones into the wall, the whole length of the thigh into the wall. And then here you look up or even at the wall behind you, as long as your neck tolerates that. If you're not happy with that with your neck, you can just stay up and kind of look forward and up. Camel pose, Ustrasana. Keep the breath going. If you're doing this with a wall, you may really feel that burn in the thighs. And then you can come up out of the pose, sit down onto your heels for a couple of breaths, and we'll do again. Okay. Once again, Ustrasana. Cinch, get the front body in the plane defined by the wall, imaginary or otherwise. Hands on the low back, fingers into the buttocks. Inhale, lengthen up, and then arch the chest away from the wall. If you wish, you can bring your hands down to your thighs, your heels. Your thighs may come away from the wall or out of that perpendicular position, so then push the thighs back to the wall. Ustrasana. Keep the breath. Keep the elbows moving toward each other. I'll help you keep that expansive chest. And release. All right. Let's give our low backs a little break from all that and take downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Arms and legs straight. Take the skin muscles of the low back over the buttocks and down toward the hamstrings. This will help you get a little relief there in the low back from the stress of doing the back bends. So tighten the kneecaps into the thighs, lift your thighs back, lengthen the armpit chest away from the thighs, and then fold the torso toward the thighs. As you're doing this, you're still taking the skin and muscles of the low back up over the buttocks and down. And then from the back of the knees, reach through the heels and extend the heels toward the floor. Again, tighten the kneecaps into the thighs. Lift the thighs back. Lengthen the armpit chest away from the thighs. Let the head and neck release. And then take the knees down. And the next pose is Dvipada Viparita Dandasana, two-footed inverted staff pose. So this is a tough one. The version I want to do requires a chair. So if you don't have a chair, I'm going to give some other options, but I don't want to try to do the full unsupported pose here. So the way it looks is this. If you have two chairs, you can use two chairs in this, but I'm going to be doing it with one, and I'm going to do it. I think I'll demonstrate it just this way so that you can see what I'm doing better than if I do it using the wall. So the basic idea is here. It's good to have something soft on the chair. So I'm going to go with the second sticky mat. And then you may need a bit of height to come down onto, and you might also need something of that sort. So this is the basic apparatus. Again, I'm going to show another variation for those who don't have chairs. You sit backwards through. Actually, I want to do one more thing. If you're not using a wall or two chairs, then those two blocks could be another chair. So how it looks is this. I know it's a little bit of a complex apparatus outside of the studio, but we're going to give it a try. So the idea then is I'm going to drop back onto this bolster, like so. and then extend my feet out onto the blocks. I came close to the estimate there. Now you can bring your hands over like so, or you can have your hands on your chest or holding the chair, however you might like. But this is the basic structure. When you come out, you put your feet on the floor, and you can grip the chair and come up sternum first. So if you have a chair, that's your setup. If you don't have a chair, you can use one or two bolsters. You can use some kind of height to approximate that situation. So the idea will be then, for example, like this. This is a very pleasant way to do the pose. And it's a very restorative version. But you come down to where your shoulders can hit the floor, and then you extend out like so. So you can see it's structurally the same pose. This is just a very, very pleasant way to do it. So feel free. You just have to build up some kind of height that you can kind of allow your back shoulders to drape off of. So if you have the equipment, no one objects to this version. No one I've ever known, because it feels, even as it's a back bend and a little bit of a challenge, it's so nicely supported that you really just can fall in love with this version of the pose. So give it a go with whatever props you have. Another night we'll do the unsupported version. If you do have a wall, instead of using the blocks as I did, you would, to put your feet on, you can put your feet on the wall. So that's a viable option as well. This is two-footed inverted staff pose. You do have to be cautious if you're using a chair because the chairs can tip over. So be cautious. So you want the edge of your chair to be aligned more or less with the pelvic rim. That allows your back to fall right off the chair. And if you practice this pose at home, you can imagine how it would be if you had a second chair and have your feet up on the second chair, which takes a lot of the stress off of the low back. But if you want to start to work deeper into the pose and you're using a wall, then you can bring your heels to the floor and keep your heels extending also into the wall at the same time. So then you get this very nice extension and fairly deep back bend. And it's a good way to practice to move toward doing a sort of freestanding or unsupported Dvipada Viparita Dandasana. Okay, I think that's good. I know it can get a little complicated with all the chairs and all the equipment, but go ahead and come up out of there. And I'm gonna move these props out of my way. So now we'll move to the standing poses as promised. All right. So I'm going to continue to work in this plane My head is cut off there, so let me see what I can do about that. So it looks like with the way the camera angle is at the moment, you're either going to have my head and no feet, or my feet and no head. Let's see what we can do here. All right, I think that will have to do it. All right, so I suggested that if you have two chairs, you use them. I'm going to do it with just one chair, but I'm going to grab another chair just to show how it can be done. So what we would do is we have one chair like so. Actually, the heart on the little space as well. So let me move this a little bit. So one chair would be like so. And the second chair would be like so. Now, as you can see probably from this, the problem here is that this chair is too high, much higher than this one. So if I use it this way, it's going to throw things off. So I'm going to stick with one chair. And the way I'm going to do that is by having it just centered in the mat. Now, we're going to take some other thing. It can be a sticky mat, which is what I'm going to use, or a blanket, and roll it up. So again, sticky mat, blanket, or if you happen to have like a sandbag, that's perfection. And we put that at the back of the mat, like so. And then we're going to stand in Tadasana with your heels touching the rolled mat or sandbag or anything. Blanket, towel, whatever you might have. So we're going to do Warrior One, a version of it. So go ahead and set yourselves up as such. Use a chair. If you don't have a chair, it's not necessary. You're going to be standing at the back of your mat with a rolled up blanket, sticky mat, something. And then as you're setting that up, I'll proceed. So I'm going to take my left heel up onto the rolled up prop, and I'm going to take a big step forward with my right foot. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my hands on the chair, because now what I want to do is I want to square up. I want to really focus on getting squared up, facing forward. Now, I want the back leg straight, pressing into my heel into that prop. I want to start with my right leg also straight, kneecap firm into the thigh, and I want to steer the hips. I want to take the right hip forward, the left hip forward, the right hip back, so that my hips and shoulders are aligned and facing forward. Now, using the chair can help with doing that. And then I want to lift and open my chest, just like when we had that block between the shoulder blades. Now, you may adjust exactly where the chair is positioned, because now we're going to bend that right knee to 90 degrees. So now I can get my hands nicely positioned on the chair. And the idea here then is I can get almost, my right thigh almost parallel to the floor. If I work on it, I can get quite close to parallel to the floor while keeping my hips and shoulders facing forward and keeping my left leg straight and my left heel pressing into the prop. Internal rotation on the thigh on that left leg. Now lift and open the chest and find that how it felt to get that block between the shoulder blades. Get that same lift. And then you can look forward or up. So the supported version of Virabhadrasana I, Warrior One. Okay, and then come back up. Come back to Tadasana, standing pose at the back of your mat. Take the right heel up, turning the right foot out slightly. Big step forward with the left foot. Again, you can use the chair. You may need to move it a little bit to help you give you the support and to help you square up, facing forward with the hips and shoulders. Lift the chest, open the chest, both legs straight at this point. Internal rotation on this back leg, the right thigh. And then we're going to bend the left knee, so then you may need to move your chair forward and your foot maybe forward. And then you can again get that left thigh maybe almost or close to parallel to the floor. Then using the support on the chair with the back leg straight, we lift and open the chest. Imagine that block between your shoulder blades, and then look forward or up. Again, we're steering here, the right hip forward and the left back. So we want to keep the hips evenly forward. And to do that, you have to bring that left groin, hip back, and extend the right forward. It has to be a little steering in the hips. Okay, and then come back again to Tadasana. At the back of your mat. Take the left heel up, turning the left foot out a bit. Big step forward with the right foot. Use the chair to help you square up, facing forward. Internal rotation with that left thigh. Indeed, that rotation of the left thigh internally will help you move that left hip forward. And then you steer this right groin and hip back. Lift and open the chest. Now we're going to bend that right knee. So you may need to move your chairs a little bit and get as close to parallel with that right thigh to the floor as you can. And lift the chest, open the chest. Imagine that block between your shoulder blades. Press your left heel back into that prop, that rolled blanket or sticky mat, whatever you have there. And then we're going to bring the arms up, losing your support, but maintaining that structure. Go ahead and lift up, arch the back, look up or even at the wall behind you. Virabhadrasana I. Go on pressing that left heel back into your rolled up prop. Keep that left kneecap firm into the thigh. Internal rotation on that left thigh. Move that left hip forward. Draw the right hip back as you extend the right head of shin, knee forward. Lift and open the chest. And then inhale, come up, turn, step your feet together, and come back to the back of your mat again. And then take the right heel up and a big step forward with the left foot. Again, you can use your chair or chairs to help you square up facing forward. Get the chest lifted, get both legs firm, the kneecaps firm into the thighs. Internal rotation on this right thigh, which will help you bring this right hip forward and steer the left hip back so that you're evenly squared up facing forward. And then we're going to bend the knees. So you're going to move that chair forward and bring your left thigh as close to parallel to the floor as you can. And then using the chair for support and for structure to keep the hips and shoulders forward. Kneecap firm in the right thigh, internal rotation with that right thigh. Extend that right heel to the floor. Steer the right hip forward, the left hip back. Look forward, press the left heel down, and then bring your arms up. Sweep them up into Virabhadrasana I, Warrior I. Keep on extending the back heel back and that right hip forward. Extend the left head of shin forward while drawing the left groin hip back. So you keep that steering, left hip back, right hip forward, and torso lifts, chest open. And then release. Step back. Okay, so this next one we'll do is Warrior III, Virabhadrasana III. So I'm going to do it without the prop in back. You can use the prop in back, but in the end, it'll kind of get in the way. And I'll have my chair in front. Now, I'm going to show it another way as well, where you can use the wall. But first, I'm going to show this way. So just watch. We start as we did before. Turn that left foot out of that big step forward with the right foot. Now, you can do this pose by starting, as you can see here, perhaps, not with the way the camera is right now, my left heel comes off the floor. That's okay. So you can kind of start with warrior one, but then we're going to bring this down and we're going to launch, make sure I don't mess up my chords there, into Virabhadrasana III. Now, even though this pose looks very different from warrior one, the instructions are very much the same. We have here both legs straight, so we're not going to bend the leg, but we're still going to steer the hips, because what tends to happen when we do warrior three is we tend to lift the hip. I'm going to do it to the other side so you can see what I'm talking about. We want to have the back really level, parallel to the floor, but there's a tendency to turn the hips this way. And we want to not do that. We want to keep the whole torso parallel to the floor. So the chair is very helpful in doing that. But there's another way to do where you'll have to look at the side angle, which you won't see on the recording for this part, but it's a nice way to do, where you use either two chairs or you use the wall. So it looks like this. I have to find the right positioning for it. So this is the idea. So you can do like this. I'm a little scrunched for space, but this is a nice way to do the pose as well. So it helps you by having one foot on the wall to really get that tabletop-like structure for the back. So this is my camera angles. I'm going to continue to do it facing this way. And we'll take Tadasana towards the back of your mat. And then we're going to turn the left foot out and take a big step forward with the right foot. Let's go with hands on hips and square up the hips and shoulders facing forward. Lift and open the chest. And then we're going to bend that right knee. And instead of going into warrior one, we'll just go right into warrior three. So as you can see, it's nice to be able to move the chair as you do, unless you're really good at getting the structure just right. So then you work on getting the whole body, except the standing leg, parallel to the floor. So if you're standing on your right leg, whichever leg is standing, you want to extend that heel into the floor. And you want to lift the hips up. And you want to really extend the whole length of the body, the hands, arms one way, the lifted leg the other. Full extension. And now, once again, imagine there's that block between your shoulder blades. So you still have that same action. Both kneecaps firm into the thighs. Internal rotation on that lifted leg. All right, and then come back down. And come again to Tadasana. Toward the back of your mat. Turn the right foot out. Big step with the left foot. I'm going to see if I can maintain my camera position here this time. Hands on hips, square up the hips and shoulders facing forward. Lift open the chest. And then we're going to bend that left knee and then extend forward into Warrior III, Virabhadrasana III. So as much as possible, we want to have both legs straight. We want to have a 90-degree angle between the standing leg and the rest of the body. We want to fully extend the lifted leg foot back and the hands and arms forward. So really extend out. And then have that block between your shoulder blades. So you open the chest. Virabhadrasana III, Warrior III. Okay, bring that foot down, come up. Just for fun, shall we try the pose without props? I think it's always fun to test, to give it a little test. So let's see what happens. So start toward the back of your mat. Turn the left foot out. Big step forward with the right foot. Hands on hips, square up the hips and shoulders. Now this time we will do an intermediate pose. So we're going to bend the right knee, let the left hip, the left heel come off the floor, and take your hands down to the floor. This isn't necessary, but sometimes it can help to kind of get your bearings and get ready to go. And then we're going to just kind of launch up, straightening that right leg and extending the arms forward. And that left leg back. Warrior III, Virabhadrasana III. It's fine to do as some of you are, like with your hands on a wall or some other prop. But if you can, you give it a try without props. Okay, and then come back down and then return to the back of the mat. And now we turn the right foot out, take a big step forward with the left foot. Square up the hips and shoulders, facing forward, lift open the chest, bend that knee, let the right heel come off the floor, bring your hands down. Again, this is an intermediate position that you don't have to do, but it helps sometimes. And then we're going to launch into the full pose. Virabhadrasana III, Warrior III. And then let's come right down into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Arms and legs straight, head and neck release. Take the skin and muscles of the low back through the buttocks and down towards the hamstrings. And then downward facing hero pose, Adho Mukha Virasana. Come down onto your knees, knees apart, big toes touch, sit back on your heels, and then rest your torso and forehead down. And just be at ease. If you have a bolster, this can be very restorative by hugging the bolster between your thighs. Like so. This gives support to the lower abdomen, which gives support to the low back. So after these kind of back bendy poses, these poses like warrior, where you really have to engage the low back muscles, as well as those back bends earlier, this can be a very comforting, restorative pose. All right, come up from there, and we'll go right into Shavasana. So if you have a bolster, you may want to use it in your Shavasana. I'm going to stretch out a blanket here for comfort on my sticky mat. I have a blanket here for pillow. Once again, to raise the forehead to a position at or above the chin. So we'll lie back. I think we'll just go right into our Shavasana. Well, no, I'm going to do a couple of things just to get a little bit of release. This is how I'd use my bolster if I'm going to do that. But just before we finish, let's do just a couple of final things. So lie back in Supta Tadasana. I always feel that doing back bending classes and warrior type classes, it's good to just do a couple of things to release the stress from the low back. I'm going to change the camera angle here again so that you can be seeing what I'm doing. Okay, so stretch out in Supta Tadasana. Feet together, extend the heels, lift and open the chest, still imagining that there's that block between your chest. A little less aggressively now, because we're just going into Shavasana, but still, there's that lift in the chest and that openness. And then we're going to hug the right knee into the chest and extend the left heel. Not hard work here, but fully inhabiting the pose. Just let the breath quiet. Move back to the in and out the nose, breathing. And then go to the second side, moving through Supta Tadasana. Bring the left knee up, change the interlace of the fingers, draw the left knee into the chest and extend the right heel. Quiet, even breath. And then back to the first side, hug the right knee, extend the left heel, keep the sacrum, the very low back, evenly on the floor. And move through Supta Tadasana to the second side, changing the interlace of the fingers, draw that left knee up, extend the right heel away. Return to Supta Tadasana. And then if, like me, you're going to use a bolster, you can either do it under your knees, as I showed a moment ago, or on top of your thighs, or both. I'm going to go under the knees. It's a nice way to release the low back after the back bending. But whatever version you're doing, take a little internal inventory. Take note of any little imbalances or asynchronized things, little things out of sync, out of symmetry, asymmetrical. You want your shoulder blades evenly on the floor, your sacrum, buttocks evenly on the floor, thighs and knees evenly released. Same with the feet. Your hands can be either on the floor, palms up, or on your torso, palms down. Have the very back of your head, the center of the back of your head, centered on the floor, and let the weight of your head release into the floor. Let the weight of your torso release into the floor. Soften the abdomen. Let the internal organs there release toward the low back and then into the floor. Release the weight of your legs and your feet. let go of all effort. Soften in the throat and the neck. Let jaw release. The tension in the skin and muscles of the face and scalp. And again, let the weight of your head release into the floor. Bring a complete softness into the neck. Let the breath quiet. You may find yourself in a place where your breath may seem to have gone still for some period of time. So just go with that. Just let your mind, your mental activity calm, quiet, with the sound and the movement of your breath. All right, now take a few slightly deeper breaths, or stay in Shavasana longer if you wish. But for the purposes of this class, we'll let your eyes open. Bring your hands to your abdomen or torso if they're not already there. Bend your knees and roll to your side. And stay curled up here for a few more breaths. When you come up, keep your neck soft and bring the crown of your head up last. So you use a little arm strength and gently push to a seated posture. All right. Thank you all for coming. Namaste.
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 I'm going to stop the recording.
Good to see everybody.
Good
Yeah,
to see